Hi guys, it's Janae and welcome back to my channel, and today I'm continuing and actually finishing my read-along for Disabled Tyrant's Beloved Pet Fish Volume 3. Of course it would take until the final read-along for this volume for me to not stutter over the entire name of the novel. So anyway, we are here. I think it's probably going to be just over an hour. So depending on how things go, we might not take a break on the hour. We might just go straight through and finish it up. Um, but yeah, we'll see. Hi. Um, so let me think. I think we are. I'm sorry for running late. But we are running late, so I don't want to take too much time just leading into things. If you're new here, hi, I'm Janae. I read anime. Um, and usually we read for 3 hours. Today, because we're finishing off, we're just reading until we're done with the novel, and we might or might not take a break on the hour for 10 minutes, depending on how things go. I have tea here with me. I saw the most beautiful like mugs and what do you call it, teacups, and I'm like so tempted to buy them just so I have beautiful mugs to have while we're doing the read-alongs, because I don't think I've ever seen more beautiful mugs in my life. Um, but they're expensive, so I technically can't justify them. But I'm hoping maybe someone gives me birthday money, like maybe my aunt or something, and then maybe I can justify buying it for myself. We'll see. Um, have you guys seen the trailer for Kill to Love? Kill to Love? I have not heard of that one. Hmm. Okay. Um, I just need a pillow and then we are ready to go. Okay, we are on page 355, chapter 112. It's a new Dangai, adapted from a Danmei novel in Uncensored. I have not heard of that at all. I need to go investigate. Okay, let's finish this. Chapter 112, Pet Fish, Pet Ducks. Oh goodness, okay. After Prince Jing returned to the capital, the emperor started to rely on him more. Prince Jing was the D son, and he'd achieved great feats on the Western Front, so though he couldn't speak, the court officials didn't say much in opposition. The Sixth Prince had no competition to speak of only a little while ago, but now, having been reprimanded by the emperor for the bribery case, he rarely appeared in public anymore. He chose to keep his head down, which was making several court officials who supported him begin to hesitate. I'm just stressed still about the fact that we now have the former love interest in the emperor's bed. Like, we have not touched on that, and I feel like it's gonna be a pretty important thing. I can't understand why Shoi is not more worried about it. The officials had originally supported the third prince. When the sixth prince started becoming more prominent, they had even tried to claim that the third prince and the sixth prince were on the same side. Now that the third prince was no longer favoured, these officials had never spoken a single sentence more on behalf of the third prince and had gone straight to supporting the sixth prince. They were only fence-sitters after all, so it was typical for them to randomly swap sides. The sixth prince had his own plans. He couldn't be bothered with appeasing these officials right now. Prince Jing had moved to hmm, had moved to center stage. Not only did he have political achievements, he'd also gained the emperor's support through his sons. Comparing it to Lady Liang's pregnancy, the sixth prince could clearly tell that the emperor favored Prince Jing. If he took the initiative to compete with Prince Jing, he would just be following in the third prince's footsteps and make the emperor dislike him. But if he pretended to be weak and bided his time to find Prince Jing's mistakes so that Prince Jing lost the emperor's favor, then the emperor would naturally turn towards him. Unfortunately, he is smart. As for Prince Jing's mistakes, he was quite sure he'd already found one. Consort Zhang had found a couple of assistants for him, distant relatives of the Zhang family. The sixth prince could trust them, so he secretly sent one of the more capable ones to verify his suspicions and hopefully gather some evidence. On the outside, the sixth prince looked quiet and obedient, as if Prince Jing becoming more influential was no problem for him, but he was just waiting for confirmation. Once he had it, he would take him down in one strike. I'm assuming he thinks that the mistake he's found is the fact that Li is not, or the sons aren't legitimate heirs or something like that, which obviously we all know to be fake, but how do you prove that when a man having children is such an unbelievable thing? Or a man being pregnant, I should probably say. Um, the wet nurse to the four young children, Madame Chin, had run into some trouble. Her son lost a lot of money in an investment and was chased back to his home by debt collectors. Madame Chin had already given them all her savings, but it wasn't enough. She'd been looking dejected for the past few days and was inevitably a little neglectful when taking care of the children. She made a lot of mistakes, and though they weren't huge mistakes, it was enough for Prince Jing. She knew she had earned, and she knelt to beg Prince Jing to not let her go from the palace. As long as she had this job, the manor would take care of her, and her whole family wouldn't have to worry for the rest of their lives. But if she was chased out, she would have nothing left. Yeah, and she could be the weak link that the prince needs, which is not good. Mm. Madame Chin was one of the people serving Li Ye, so Prince Jing looked to Li Ye for his input. Though Li Ye was the consort, he was usually a bit lazy and didn't ask after the manor's affairs. Prince Jing wanted to help Li Ye cultivate some authority and respect, but when he thought of what had happened with Auntie Xue, he didn't think that was a realistic expectation for Li Ye. Prince Jing could essentially guess what Xiaoyu would do, so he might as well let Xiaoyu collect some good karma. Prince Jing handed the reins over to Liu. Liu took the olive branch he offered. The fishy consort didn't really want to manage anything, because power and status often turned couples against one another. Liu thought that staying away from the power would lengthen their relationship, but the fish scamming system had given him the quest, share the country, so he couldn't just keep loafing around. Why is that so funny? Since he couldn't hide, then he should face it bravely. Leo took one tiny step in the direction of being the lady of the house, trying it out carefully. He would start with Madame Chin. The manor had clear rules, so it was easy to follow them and hard to make mistakes. Leo remembered that Madame Chin had a good temper and was quite meticulous, so why did she keep messing up? Is something wrong? Leo asked patiently. Why do you keep making mistakes? Madame Chin felt her nose sting. She was just a servant, and the children didn't need her milk anymore. The consort only needed her to help look after and play with the children. In all honesty, she didn't have much work to do every day, even though she was still being paid a wet nurse's salary. The fact that she kept making mistakes in spite of this made her feel extremely ashamed to face the consort. But not only did the consort not seem to mind, he asked her what was wrong. Even if she lost all her dignity, she couldn't keep it in anymore. She broke down and cried, telling him everything that had happened with her son. Leah asked for the amount, and Madame Chin stated a large sum of money. Leah thought for a moment. There is an easy solution, he decided. Since you're Dabao and the others is wet nurse, the manor will always support you. We can give you the amount of money right away and deduct a portion of it from your monthly salary. Leah meant that he would lend the money to her on behalf of the manor and have her repay some of it every month. He might not have an eye for antiques, but he knew that his husband, who gave him a bunch of priceless gems to play with, was very rich. That amount of money wasn't much to Prince Jing, but to Madame Chin it was life-saving money. Saving a life was better than honoring someone with a grave after the fact, and he wasn't giving it to her for nothing. It was essentially an interest-free loan, since she would pay back some of it every month. Madame Chin had no need to be troubled or feel embarrassed. Prince Jing had given him the full authority to handle this matter, so it would have been simple enough for him to ask Prince Jing to immediately pay off the debt. However, he felt that now that he was the consort, he had to give it some more thought and consider the case more carefully. Madame Chin had made mistakes, so it wasn't fair or right if he just repaid her debts. What would the other servants think? They could take advantage of him by making mistakes. Compared to whom to help and how to help, the manor's authority was still very important. That was why he chose to lend her money instead. The manor wouldn't lose anything, and Madame Chin would be overcoming this difficulty on her own. Meanwhile, outsiders would see the humanity of Prince Jing's manor. Madame Chin was overjoyed with this arrangement and wrote a promissory note on the spot. After Li and Prince Jing took a look at it, Li and Wang Shi filed it away. I am honestly relieved that they did it by the book, because I just immediately was fearful that if Leah didn't think this through and he just gave him something that Prince Jing had given him to go and pawn for the money, then she might end up being accidentally accused of theft and somehow blackmailed by the Sixth Prince in order to save her and her son's lives. I don't know. Leah casually introducing no interest loans. Oh goodness, yeah. Leah glanced at Prince Jing and added, "If others in the manor have similar difficulties, please tell His Highness, and he will make the proper arrangements." Prince Jing unconsciously curled his lips into a smile. He'd wanted to give his consort a chance to cultivate some authority through this incident, but his consort gave the chance to him instead. Wang Shi felt quite sure that this was for Prince Jing's sake. To the rest of the country, Prince Jing had a reputation for being strict and harsh. It hadn't mattered much in the past, but now that the Emperor valued Prince Jing, Wang Shi was afraid that Prince Jing's reputation would be a burden. If they did as the consort said, then his reputation would become a positive one. Wang Shi expectantly waited for his master's response, and Prince Jing's glance told him, "Do it." Wang Shi made arrangements immediately. Since she'd made mistakes in taking care of the children, Madame Chin still had to be punished to placate the masses. Leah had a problem with the manor's minimum 30 strokes of the board rule, though, so he wanted to take the opportunity to change that as well. In the past, he'd been a lowly pet fish, so the most he could do was act cute. It wasn't particularly useful. Now that he was the consort, he had to take advantage of his new power. Tianchi, let's make some small adjustments, he discussed quietly with Prince Jing. The first offense will incur 10 strokes, while the next one will incur 30. How does that sound? At first he wanted to cut it down to 15, but he was afraid that if he directly said 15, Prince Jing would think it was too large of a reduction. Leo decided to be a bit cunning and started with 10 instead. Prince Jing, of course, guessed exactly what he was thinking. He pursed his lips and wrote, "First offence is 15 strokes. The next offence is leaving the manor." It was reasonable that the punishment for the next offence was higher. He internally put up a victory sign, but externally solemnly agreed. I love that he's using this to positively, like, he's like, "I have power now. I shall positively affect the world." We stand. Leo standing for women's rights and women's wrongs. Oh, goodness. Madame Chin thanked him profusely and accepted her punishment. After she was struck with the board, she went to accept the money. Wang Xi Gong Gong gave her some silver and she limped out to pay the debt. When he saw her, the debt collector thought she must have tried to steal money from her master and ended up punished, so he sneered. "Look at how miserable you are, but you still can't repay the loan. I have a way for you to get rid of the debt. Do you want to hear it?" Madame Chin was holding the money that Wang Shi had given her, but she did want to get rid of her debt, so she thought she would hear him out and didn't let him know that she already had the money. "I know you're the wet nurse at Prince Jing's manor. I want something from there. If you can get it, then I'll forgive your debt." Madame Chin's heart raced. The debt collector had heard that there were quadruplets in Prince Jing's manor, and he wanted something from the children to be made into an amulet to protect a pregnant woman and her child at home. The country did have such a custom. Things like bracelets or handkerchiefs would be enough, and Madame Chin had quite a number of these things. But while she was pondering whether she should accept, the man specified, "I only want a drop of blood from the eldest young master." On one hand, she could repay the prince's money honestly, and on the other, she could do what the person said. She had more opportunity than most to get close to the young master, and it was just a drop of blood. It wasn't hard to get it when he was sleeping. Madame Chin hesitated. When she reached her hand into her robes and felt the money the consort had given her, she gritted her teeth. The consort had been kind enough to help her. How could she hurt the young heir in return? Yes. Stand on business. I love it. Please keep standing on business. She didn't know what the man's intentions were, so she calmed down and decided to delay him. She said that she needed to think about it and then immediately fled back to Prince Jing's manor and knocked on the door to Prince Jing's study. The candles in the study stayed lit until late night, and after she left Wang Shi went in and didn't leave for a while. The next day, Madame Chin found the debt collector and said she was at the end of her rope, so she was willing to help. His eyes looked triumphant. Madame Chin wanted to do it herself, but the debt collector insisted, "Take me to the manor. I'll do it." I need another pillow. Hold on. She knew he didn't trust her. She had to do as he said. She snuck him in by pretending he was a relative who was just here to ask the manor for a job. After a couple of questions, Wang Shi agreed to let the man enter the manor. As soon as he entered, he was almost dazzled by all the water in the manor. Madame Chin smiled and said, "His Highness loves fish, and this was prepared for Master Fish." The man nodded indifferently. It was known in the capital that Prince Jing liked his pet fish. Prince Jing's manor was heavily guarded, and they were both patted down several times before the man was finally brought into the courtyard. For some reason, there were 2 fat ducks in this courtyard, making a racket. As the man stepped in, the 2 ducks flew towards him and started pecking at him. The man lifted his hand to hit them, but Madame Chin quickly said, "You can't. This is the consort and the children's pet duck that they brought from the Western Front. If either are injured, the guards will find out. You'll be beaten if they lose a single feather." Pet fish and pet ducks? What kind of weird manner was this? I mean, it is quite opposite to each other. The 2 Western ducks were powerful. They pecked him until it hurt, but for the sake of his plan, he had to just endure it in silence. Madame Chin slowed down and led the man into the inner room. There was a child lying on the bed, facing away from them. She quickly walked in, calling out softly, "Young master." The child rolled over, still asleep. From a distance away, the man glanced at the child's face and matched it up mentally with the portrait he'd received. He was confident now. The child was about to wake up, so he quickly asked Madame Chin to lull him back to sleep again. When the child fell asleep, the man took out a handkerchief from his sleeve and put it over the child's face, holding it there for a bit. Madame Chin thought he was going to hurt the young heir, so she hurriedly rushed over to save him. The man pushed her aside and removed the handkerchief once it had been there for long enough. The handkerchief wasn't placed tightly over the child's face, so it wasn't dangerous, but there was a thorn apple pollen on the handkerchief that would make a person fall unconscious. Once the man saw that the child was properly asleep, he took out a silver needle and white porcelain bottle from his sleeve. Madame Chin collapsed to the ground, unable to look. Okay. After he'd collected the blood, the man took a silver bracelet from the child's arm and left. All of this was viewed by everyone waiting in the next room. "Is he gone?" He was holding the bow in his arms and gestured at Prince Jing. Prince Jing nodded. The bow was sitting in his fish father's arms, afraid to even breathe too loudly. He'd just seen what happened and immediately understood what Fish Father said about people being scary. Dabao knew that he was still too young and couldn't do anything though, so he simply remembered that man's face and thought he would tell Emperor Grandpa later. "Dabao, he's not gonna understand you, but you go for it." Oh no. We just need the Land Clan bunnies and a little apple, and then we'll have a full zoo. Indeed, indeed. Oh goodness. Mm. Once Prince Jing made sure it was safe, he rang the jade bell. When she soon brought Madame Chin in, she stood there, her eyes downcast. Prince Jing ordered Wang Shi to rip up the promissory note as a reward, and she thanked him profusely. The child, lying on the bed, jumped down and joined them in the room where Prince Jing was waiting, where he took out a bottle of liquid and skillfully wiped his face. The chubby little face that had looked the same as Dabao's suddenly turned into an adult's. Even his voice became an adult's. Let's just keep reading. This was actually a man with dwarfism who was about the size of a child. Yeah, but the size of a child and the size of a baby is quite different. Unless it's been like a while and they're toddlers now, maybe? I'm unsure. Mm. He was a special guard under Prince Jing's command, and Prince Jing had called him over to work with Madame Chin and Wang Xi in order to. Sorry. Prince Jing had called him over to work with Madame Chin and Wang Xi on a particular scheme. The guard made his greetings and raised his head. Leah's eyes shone with respect. He felt like this god was incredibly skilled. He looked a lot like Dabao, and their differences in figure were impossible to see when he was lying down. Okay. It was more than enough to trick a man who'd never seen Dabao before and had to rely on a portrait to identify him. "Did you change your appearance?" Leah asked excitedly. He transmigrated into a fish and even given birth, but he'd never thought he'd be able to witness such skills in his lifetime. "Leah, never change. Just never change. You are so ridiculous and I love you for it." The guard paused and smiled. "I don't know what you mean by change. I just used some makeup. It was nothing but a small trick." "Even so, that was amazing. How did you do it?" Leah couldn't be stopped when he was curious. that God was going to give him more details, but when he saw Prince Jing's darkened expression next to him, he decided to just respectfully clasp his fists together in farewell and take his leave. The distracted consort focused once again on his husband's big plan. The feeling of plotting against someone with Prince Jing was so satisfying, especially when the other party thought they had already won, since they had a young heir's blood. In reality, they couldn't have been more wrong. He didn't even need to think to know who had sent the man, but he was worried the Sixth Prince would suspect something. Your Highness, will he believe this? Mia asked. Yes, Prince Jing was sure. The Sixth Prince was careful and meticulous. If everything went too smoothly, he'd definitely question it. That was why Prince Jing had ordered the guards to check them over multiple times, and had even brought out the duck army to guard the family. They had pecked the man dozens of times. Things felt more real when they were more dangerous. Prince Jing knew the Sixth Prince desperately wanted to catch his mistakes, so he'd just hand one over on a silver platter. If the Sixth Prince rose to prominence again, it would be hard to deal with him. But what if he knew a huge secret of Prince Jing's? Although the secret is fake, as long as the Sixth Prince believed it was real, it would work. I'm excited, but I don't know if we're gonna get the resolution within this volume. And we don't have a lot of pages left, so chapter 113. Fishy charging. Okay. Why did the Sixth Prince need Dabal's blood? The technology of ancient times was not as good as that of modern times, so what use was blood? Palace novels often included scenes where they used blood to confirm the I know how to say this word and now my mouth is just refusing. Legitimacy? There we go. Of a child. But as a person from modern times, Leah knew that those weren't accurate. What could the Sixth Prince do with Dabao's blood? Prince Jing tapped Leah's forehead lightly and told him a secret of the royal family. The imperial physicians in the palace had their own secret methods of verifying whether or not someone was a member of the royal family through a few drops of blood. As soon as the Sixth Prince's lackeys mentioned that he wanted to take some blood, Prince Jing knew that the Sixth Prince probably suspected that his children were illegitimate. Prince Jing had let him take the blood on purpose so that the Sixth Prince would think he was correct. Next, the Sixth Prince would definitely make arrangements to let the Emperor know. The crime of sullying the royal bloodline would be more than enough to make the Emperor change his attitude. But at the same time, the crime of slandering a prince was severe enough that the Sixth Prince would never escape it. Leah and Prince Jing waited patiently for the Sixth Prince to make a move, but unexpectedly, he retreated again. As expected of the most patient and slippery boss, though he'd suffered a lot of losses and faced a lot of mistakes at Prince Jing's hands, he could still keep calm and bide his time until the best moment. Maybe he bide his time until he turned into a large turtle, Leah thought. 2 months later, the annual hunting festival was approaching. The hunting festival, as the name suggested, was a large-scale hunting event the royal family organized in ancient times. There was a well-known joke that the founder of a country was good at fighting, while the emperor who maintained it was good at hunting. It went to show how important hunting was in an emperor's career. As a relatively clear-minded monarch, the emperor was quite keen to organize hunting events to show off his prowess, so the hunting festival was created. This was a grand hunting event, and there was only one rule. Regardless of seniority or status, only the results mattered. The emperor usually led a group of royal children in a fierce competition against the civil and military officials for the best prey. Those who ranked high enough would receive praise and rewards from the emperor, and those who performed outstandingly would receive promotions, even if they were from a humble background. The hunting festival was basically a shortcut to success. Everyone knew that if you performed well, the emperor would pay attention to you. Even children as young as 7 or 8 years old would bravely pick up their bows and arrows to rush to the grounds with everyone else. But there was someone who didn't want to participate in this event that everyone else enjoyed. Prince Jing rarely went hunting. In the hunting festivals of previous years, he always stayed in his manor instead. Usually, Ye Qingyan would go on Prince Jing's behalf to just go through the motions. Truthfully, Prince Jing's actions were understandable. After all, what was the point of a prince with a disability making an outstanding showing for himself? Nobody considered it rude that he didn't go. Instead, they thought it was how things should be. The emperor never said much about it either. Though seniority didn't matter in the hunting festival, the emperor still took first place every year. Do we believe that all of that is because of his merits, or because people are too afraid to outshine the emperor? I can't help but wonder. Sorry. In the past, second place had usually gone to the second prince or sometimes the third prince. That wasn't really a surprise. The ranks further down were the ones people fought for. But the situation had changed drastically this year. The second prince had gone insane, the third prince was abandoned, and the sixth prince was a dark horse who made a breakthrough. Everything seemed to be settled. But then Prince Jing, who was not at all preferred and should never have been an option for Crown Prince, went to the Western Front and came back, and things changed again. As the only prince in the country who had achievements in both politics and military exploits, as well as the noble status of the Disan, and for a lively, healthy Gongzi, being born unable to speak was no longer a big deal, especially as Prince Jing's oldest son was one of the emperor's favorites. Every time Dabao entered the palace, he would sit directly in the emperor's lap. All of these were clear signs of Prince Jing's sudden rise to prominence. Though there was a saying that princes was not easily given the title of prince, it wasn't difficult to tell who had lost favor permanently as opposed to a brief fall. It was obvious when you compared him to the Marquis of Ping and Marquis of An. Prince Jing's title was perhaps special and indicated his place as the emperor's favorite. Clever people would quietly pay attention to the rankings of this hunting festival, as once the rankings were determined, it might be obvious who was going to become the crown prince. Even the emperor was looking forward to it, but Prince Jing, who rarely participated, still said that he didn't want to join in this year, and planned to stay in the manor with his consort and play with the children. The emperor couldn't let things go on like this. He'd seen the battle reports from the western border. He knew that Prince Jing could lead troops and even fight bandits. What was wrong with some hunting? With a darkened expression, the emperor ordered head eunuch Law to send the message that no matter what, Prince Jing must participate in the hunting festival and was not allowed to shirk that responsibility. Prince Jing had no choice but to head to the hunting grounds with Li Yu. They were afraid that something would happen to the children if they were left at the manor, so after some discussion they decided to take them along. There would be imperial guards to keep them safe at the hunting grounds. Prince Jing would also bring enough people to look after the children, and since they couldn't really walk yet, there was no danger of them running around when they got there. You know, considering they are not just for normal children, but also for fish children, I am suddenly not that confident about their supposed safety. Mm. With the children's whereabouts decided, all that was left was to prepare. There were special robes for hunting. Prince Jing made Li Yi a set of white riding robes with gold hems in advance. It was a proper narrow sleeves, short outfits that looked quite dashing. As soon as he got As soon as he put it on, Leah thought he was so handsome that he nagged Prince Jing to wear a matching one. He was drooling at the thought. A prince and his consort had to wear matching clothes for such an occasion. At Leah's encouragement, Prince Jing didn't just have an outfit made for himself, he also commissioned little riding clothes for the children. Leah and his children have Prince Jing wrapped around their collective pinky finger, and I kind of live for it. When the hunting festival rolled around, Prince Jing put on his matching set of black riding robes with a jasper belt around his waist and a violet golden hairpiece. With his handsome face and upright, attractive figure, he and Leah were truly a match made in heaven. The handsome, attractive riding outfits the adults wore were shrunken down for the four children, making them look round and cute. Dabao was wearing a little golden ring riding set and little leather boots. His round body made the clothes bulge, and he wobbled dreadfully with every step, making Leo nervous. He could already stumble around on his legs and say a couple of words at a time, slowly but clearly. The imperial physician and the wet nurse both said that boys usually started talking later than this, so the little heir was already doing very well. Erbao and Sanbao were wearing riding sets of gold mixed with silver. They couldn't walk yet, and they couldn't talk as well as Dabao could either. Dabao had only held onto the wall and started to move, but Erbao and Sanbao rolled on the ground like two shining balls and clung to Dabao's boots, insisting that he drag them along with him. Oh no, the dynamic is already so clear. Dabao didn't treat the two with disdain. His little face showed a seriousness that was inconsistent with his age, and he raised his stubby legs to step forward with all his might, but he still couldn't move. Li and Prince Jing both laughed. Sabal, who was wearing a handsome black riding set with silver trim, sat in his fishy father's arms and giggled non-stop. But his great joy ended up bringing him sorrow. As he laughed, Leah blinked at him and put him down. Scatterbrained, Sabal was the one least interested in his human form, and he felt the same way about walking. Compared to Dabal's seriousness, Sabal put in almost no effort. He let the soles of his feet touch the ground for just a moment, and then plopped onto the ground with his butt, reaching his arms out and crying, "Ah!" for his fish father to carry him again. Oh no. Now that Leah had put him down, he wasn't going to pick him back up again. Sabal stared at him with his eyes that looked like Leah's, then copied Erbao and Sanbao by holding on to Dabao's legs. Dabao had suddenly gained another brother as a pendant. Leah laughed. Wang Shi had already brought the horse over, and Prince Jing put the children in the carriage first. Wang Gonggong was in charge of taking care of them, so when the children were safely in the carriage, Prince Jing, in a good mood, pulled his consort onto his horse and wrapped his arms around him, slowly trotting beside the carriage. Leah kept mumbling that sitting in the front made him look childish, but when the horse started running, he screamed immediately. When they arrived, Prince Jing and his family first headed to the dragon tent to greet the emperor. The emperor was quite satisfied with how tactful Prince Jing was, and whispered a few sentences to him. This was the first time Li had participated in such a large-scale event. To avoid any mistakes, he stood politely behind Prince Jing. The emperor gave him a few words of encouragement as well. He seemed very wise and powerful at that moment, but when he saw the children wearing neat riding sets beside Leah's legs, his demeanor changed. He couldn't help but laugh out loud. "Dabao, are you going hunting today as well?" The regal emperor transformed into a kind grandpa. He scooped Dabao up with one arm, smiling. "Grandpa, hunting," Dabao said crisply. Once Dabao learned how to talk, Leah had tried to teach him the proper way to address the emperor, but grandfather was still difficult for a child to say. The emperor used this as an excuse to permit Dabao to keep calling him grandpa. He thought it made them seem closer. I hope that the family can stay happy and that the four kids won't be bugged by the normal enmity that seems to permeate royal family dynamics. Mm. The emperor was happy that Dabao knew to be ambitious at such a young age and had a thought to teach Dabao archery himself, but such a small child didn't have the arm strength to hold a bow. The emperor ordered Lu Risheng to find a slingshot and swapped archery for shooting. Dabao's chubby hands fiddled with the string, not knowing what to do. The emperor stroked his beard and was about to teach him how to use it when he remembered that his son, Prince Jing, was still waiting for him. Without the emperor's permission, Prince Jing could not move. You can go. If you don't place well, don't come back to see me, the emperor ordered, expectantly. Wow. The double standards. Like, oh, you're the cutest thing ever. It's okay if you call me grandpa instead of grandfather. But also, my son, do not dare to disappoint me in any way, shape, or form. It will not be forgiven. I understand that the bar is still a baby, but this is not the first time we've seen a little bit of a double standard. Prince Jing nodded and met Lia's gaze. The Emperor's edict for them to participate in the hunting festival had come unexpectedly, and Lia didn't know how to ride a horse. Prince Jing gave him a few last-minute lessons, but Lia still wasn't very good at it, so it wasn't likely that he would achieve much this time. Wait, so do the other consorts also participate, or is it just because Lia's a man that he's expected to participate? And the children had come as well, so one of them had to look after them. They couldn't both hunt. They'd heard the sixth prince had arrived before them and had already been at the hunting grounds for an hour. He had gathered a lot of game and was among the highest ranked so far. Tianchi, don't worry, go ahead. Lia cheered for his husband, encouraging him on his way out. Show him what you've got. Prince Jing nodded and pulled Lia into his arms to rub his head, not caring who was nearby. Lia took the chance to be a little lovey-dovey with him, then giddily returned to the tent to sit in a lesser priority position near the emperor. He listened to the guards' reports. Sometimes the sixth prince would catch something, and other times Prince Jing would. The sixth prince was way ahead at first, but Prince Jing caught up quickly and closed the gap. The first animal Prince Jing caught was a white rabbit. It was still alive with only the skin on its leg damaged by an arrow. The emperor's mouth twitched as he looked at it, and he asked Lia to take care of it. The children all started to clap. Rabbit! Erbao and Sanbao said, laughing. Sabao reached for it. Rabbit! Sabao was always a little slower, and this was one of the rare moments where he spoke a word clearly. The children surrounded the snow-white rabbit, clearly enjoying it. Lia was suddenly brought back to the time the ducks had entered the house for the first time. Prince Jing must have done it on purpose. What was he supposed to do with such a cutie? Oh goodness, as you said, they just need the bunnies. We are well on our way to collecting a zoo. Lia happily asked Wang Gong to bandage the rabbit's leg. It looked like there'd be another pet to add to the pet fish and pet ducks in the manor. The results of the hunt wouldn't be available for a while, and the emperor got tired of listening to reports, so he started teaching Dabao how to use a slingshot. A slingshot needed pallets, since it'd be useless to just pull the string. But the usual pallets were made of either iron or stone, which was too dangerous for children to play with. The emperor, who often heard Prince Jing praise Lia, asked Lia to think of something. Lia was quite clever. He tore a piece of paper up and scrunched it into a ball. That wouldn't hurt if it hit someone. Pellets acquired, the Emperor held the bow's soft little hand as they both pulled on the string, then let go. A paper ball flew out and lightly bounced off of head eunuch Lowell, who was trying to inquire for updates. I love it. But also the fact that the Emperor's like, yes, no, consort you is super insightful. Maybe he'll be able to think of something, and Leah's just like, paper? The obvious thing? Um, sorry, let me just quickly mute that. I forgot that I have this open. Okay, here we go. Prince Jing's petting zoo, 5 copper coins for entry. Please don't feed the animals. I mean, I'm sure the fish would love to be fed. Liu Sheng turned around, confused. The Emperor and the Bao both were perfectly innocent expressions on their faces. Don't look at me, I didn't do it. Liu couldn't hold back his giggle. There wasn't anything big going on here with the Emperor, so he was mostly preoccupied with Prince Jing. The guards had come to report several times that the sixpence was always ahead. At one point, Prince Jing almost caught up, but the gap had widened again. Leo couldn't look too anxious in front of the Emperor, but he was worried for Prince Jing the entire time. Unthinkingly, he walked to the front of the tent and looked for Prince Jing among the participants. He found him quickly. Prince Jing was riding a horse and looked exhausted. He lowered his head and wiped the sweat from his forehead. There was a bunch of prey hanging from the horse's back. Hold on. Okay, there's an image, but it does not correlate with what we have read so far. So we're gonna keep reading and then we'll refer back to the image. Leo felt sorry for him. Because of a single sentence from the Emperor, he had to go to such great lengths to prove himself. Leo watched him from a distance. Suddenly, Prince Jing seemed to hear his thoughts and turned his gaze to Leo. His lips curved into a smile, and he galloped towards Leo, arriving in time in front of him in an instant. He pulled Leo onto the horse, holding the reins with one hand and hugging him tightly with the other. He covered Leo's lips with his own, not allowing for any resistance. Oh goodness, right in front of everyone. Leo was instantly surrounded by his hot, familiar breath. Startled, he tried to softly push him away, but it was no use. Instead, he passionately kissed him back. I question how valiantly he tried before giving in. When the kiss had ended, Prince Jing nuzzled his neck contentedly and put him down. Now he seemed to be possessed by the god of war. Full of energy, he raised his riding crop in the air, galloping back to the competition. Seriously, did he think Leo was a battery pack or something? Now the title of the chapter makes sense. Oh my goodness. Feeling invigorated, Leo snuck back to his seat quietly, blushing. The Emperor was still teaching the Bao how to use the slingshot, and Wangxi was watching Erbao, Sanbao, and Sibao play with the rabbit. Nobody should have noticed that. Only a short while later, he heard the guards report that the number of Prince Jing's catches had surpassed the 6 princes. Oh goodness. Public displays of affections right in front of the Emperor's salad. Indeed, indeed. And just to seal the deal, we have the beautiful art. That kind of spoiled it a little bit, but it's okay, we'll forgive them. It is still beautiful. Okay. I think we have maybe one chapter left and then we're done. So let me just take another sip of tea before we finish this up. But I don't think we're gonna be doing a 10-minute break, not with so few pages left. Okay. I hope this doesn't end on a terrible cliffhanger, but we'll see. It would make total sense, and I would not actually be able to fault them if it does, but I will still be angry. Chapter 114. Fish Feeding. Interesting. After the hunting ended, Prince Jing returned along with the sixpence. No matter how good the sixpence usually was at acting, he almost lost control of his expression when he found he'd been beaten by a mute. I hate the way they talk about him. In the past, when the sixpence had been present for events like this, at most he was just the third prince's wingman. He was actually a good hunter, but he'd never dared show off in case the third prince became suspicious. Now he was finally able to show off a little, but to his surprise, Prince Jing had to come too. Most people didn't know that the sixth prince was good at hunting, and the sixth prince didn't know that Prince Jing was skilled either. After all, Prince Jing had never participated in the hunting festival before. The two insurers he placed well. The sixpence had arrived very early and was the first one to rush out when the drums and fanfare started. Unlike Prince Jing, who took his time getting to the hunting grounds with his entire family after everyone else had already started ages ago. There was no rules that said everyone had to start at the same time, just that the total amount of prey taken down determined their ranking. Even if someone arrived late, they could still rank high as long as they were skilled. That was, of course, the ideal situation. But it had never really happened before because arriving late would lose them the opportunity and affect their morale. However, even though Prince Jing started only halfway through the competition, the sixth prince found that any time he relaxed even a little bit, Prince Jing kept catching up. The sixth prince was already tired and Prince Jing wasn't in much better condition. Since most of the game had already been caught and Prince Jing had to work harder to find a new quarry, his progress slowed down. The sixth prince was sure that his rival wouldn't be able to surpass him. But then, through some unknown means, Prince Jing suddenly started glowing with energy while the sixth prince could barely lift his bow anymore. Magic. A magic pole called ruse. Prince Jing caught more game, claiming one target after another. The sixpence gave in one last try, but in the final moments of the competition, it was as if Prince Jing had received help from a god and ended up with more game. Oh no. Even though the sixpence had started a full hour earlier, the sixpence felt humiliated. It seemed like he wasn't that great at hunting after all. Fifth royal brother is a truly a latecomer. Sorry, that was weird. That came out on top and stole the show, the sixpence said in a strange tone as he entered the tent. Prince Jing didn't even look at him as he strode to the emperor to greet him and report his achievements. The emperor was extremely satisfied with the results. As expected, Prince Jing didn't disappoint him. Even though he'd been given a near impossible mission, he'd surpassed the sixpence and ranked right below a battle-hardened general. The emperor realized now that Prince Jing had never been bad at hunting. The reason he'd never joined the hunting festival in previous years was most likely so he could conceal his skills. He wanted to praise him, but he felt more complicated emotions over all this, and he only lightly said, "You can sit." Prince Jing bowed and returned to Leah's side without any arrogance. Leah's lips were red and moist, and his gaze was charming. This couple, who had just recharged their batteries, still remembered the passionate kiss from before. They couldn't say anything in front of the emperor, though, so they just locked eyes for a moment before Prince Jing smiled and touched Leah's hand under their sleeves. intertwining their fingers. That's cute. The emperor was sitting on the dragon's throne, and from above he could see Prince Jing and his consort's interactions. He found it both funny and cute. Even the emperor is being charmed by them, my goodness. He turned to the sixth prince and said, Tian Shao, you did pretty well, better than I expected. The emperor wasn't lying. The sixth prince's performance had been impressive, completely different from his previous showings. Unfortunately, though, he still couldn't beat Prince Jing. The sixth prince's strange attitude immediately vanished when the emperor addressed him. I'm still a long way behind fifth royal brother, he said humbly. I'll work hard in the future. The emperor nodded and told the sixth prince to sit down as well. Next to the sixth prince was his consort, who was pregnant and showing a little bit. She'd been suffering from morning sickness recently, so she was a little tired. When the sixth prince had arrived at the hunting grounds in the morning, he'd handed her off to Consort Zhang and didn't even look back. Lady Liang wasn't feeling well and had been worried about her husband, so she looked even worse for wear. Consort Zhang wasn't the nurturing type. After she'd looked after her daughter-in-law for a bit. Wait, hold on. I think I read that wrong. After she'd looked after her daughter-in-law for a bit, but Lady Liang was still unwell. So something is weird about that sentence, but I can't think of a better way that it should have been, or the correct way that it should have been worded. Maybe just she looked after her daughter-in-law for a bit, but Lady Liang was still unwell. Consort Zhang assumed that she was just playing it up because she was pregnant, so she didn't really want to pay any more attention to her. Oh, that was a comma. That's why it didn't make sense. Janae, just keep reading. Sorry about that. The sixth prince came back exhausted and upset, only to see a pained expression on his wife's face. He didn't get angry, but he didn't offer her any words of comfort either, so her expression became even gloomier. Though they were seated physically close to each other, that seemed to be the only way they were close. The emperor was a little annoyed by the sweet demonstrations of love between Prince Jing and his consort, but when he looked at the sixth prince and his consort, he felt uncomfortable instead. But the emperor didn't want to interfere with his son's family affairs, so he ordered his servants to bring in all the game from the hunting festival. The meat had been roasted by the imperial chef and cut into pieces, waiting on silver platters for the emperor to hand out as rewards. There was a trick to this. Usually the festival participants would offer their first catch to the emperor. If the choice was good, they could earn the emperor's favor, and the emperor would reward the cooked meat back to them. The general, who ranked just above Prince Jing, had presented a deer, and the sixth prince presented a hawk. Though the sixth prince hadn't beaten Prince Jing, the hawk still gave him bonus points when it was brought to the table. The emperor rewarded the general with the roasted venison, and the sixth prince with the roasted hawk. But he didn't reward Prince Jing with anything. Lear kept listening, but he didn't hear his husband's name. He wondered what Prince Jing was going to offer. Lear wanted to quickly ask him, but then he remembered that Prince Jing's first catch had been a rabbit and the manor's new pet. The rabbit had been reported to the emperor, and the emperor had asked him to handle it. Other people had deer and hawks, but his husband offered a live rabbit. I mean, that's unique. I prefer it, but I don't know if the emperor would. Rabbits were so cute. Leah didn't think there was anything wrong with presenting a rabbit, but the emperor would definitely look down on it. That was why Prince Jing had been able to give his most significant catch to him and the children to become a pet, right? Fireworks burst in Leah's chest. Just for that, when head eunuch Law brought over a whole roast chicken, Leah picked up a huge piece of meat with his chopsticks and put it in Prince Ding's bowl. Urbao, Sunbao, and Sibao picked up one roast chicken leg together. Leah didn't help them because he wanted to see how they would try to eat it. The children each only had a single small white tooth about the size of a grain of rice. They rubbed their singular tooth back and forth on the chicken leg for a long time without scraping off any meat at all. Meat! There was good food, but they couldn't eat it. The children were so agitated that they were about to start wailing their heads off. Leah took out a small silver knife he'd prepared in advance and sliced off pieces of meat from the chicken leg, placing them on a plate. Leah had only sliced half of the meat when Prince Jing took the knife from him and started doing it himself. As expected from the Tyrant male protagonist who could hunt successfully in the face of adversity, he sliced much faster than Leah did, and in a short while had a full plate of meat. The three children opened their mouths wide, waiting for Daddy to feed them. My goodness. Prince Ding picked up a piece with his chopsticks and was about to feed one of them when Leah hurriedly said, "Wait!" Prince Jing paused for a moment. Blushing, Leah copied the children and opened his mouth wide to Leah, in front of the emperor, like, time and place, sir, time and place. He's stressing me out. Prince Jing immediately understood. He couldn't help but smile when he saw the adults and three children with blinking eyes and large mouths like chicks waiting to be fed. Three children? What about the other one? Without any hesitation, he fed Leah the meat that was meant for the children. Leah ate the meat off the silver chopsticks and glanced at the three children proudly. "See? He likes me the best." Fish Father took away the fragrant meat. The children were about to cry. Leah was a little embarrassed. He hurriedly stuffed some meat into Urbal's mouth. The tears were still welling up in Urbal's eyes, but his fat chubby cheeks started moving up and down rapidly. Sunbao and Sabao, seeing that Urbal could eat but they couldn't, became even sadder. Leah and Prince Jing had wanted to feed one each, but Urbal came to the strange conclusion after he ate the meat. Prince Jing gave Fish Daddy meat, and Fish Daddy gave him meat. Shouldn't he give some to Sunbao next? That's a weirdly logical conclusion. I can see how that would work. Urbal liked Sunbao, so he nodded as if he understood. He took out a piece of saliva-covered meat and stuffed it into Sunbao's mouth. When Sunbao in turn fed another piece of saliva-covered meat to Sabao, Leah realized that the children had misunderstood something. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry, but he was happy that the fish children were willing to share. The children's loving meat-based game of pass the parcel wasn't over yet. As Sabao ate, he thought of Dabao. He started yelling and pointing at him. Dabao was still sitting on the emperor's knees. When Sabao started wailing, the emperor noticed and waved him forward kindly. Wangji picked Sabao up and plopped him over. Sabao and Dabao met on the emperor's lap. Sabao kept shouting, "Ah!" and stuffed the remaining meat into Dabao's mouth. Understanding slowly dawned. Oh no, he's about to. Understanding slowly dawned on in Dabao's eyes, but his brothers had already fed everyone. Who was left for him to feed? He's about to feed the emperor. If he frickin', I don't know if I'll be able to deal with this. Dabao's eyes lit up. At first, the emperor couldn't hold back his laughter as he watched, but then Dabao suddenly turned around and put the last bit of meat in the emperor's hand. Dabao patted his hand boldly. "Grandpa eats." Oh no. Oh goodness. Okay. We'll survive, we'll survive. After the emperor ascended to his position, he had given meat to countless others, but this was the first time someone had given meat to him. Though the meat had been passed around and was covered with different children's saliva, making it inedible, the emperor was quite moved by the children's thoughtfulness. Prince Jing's children were all good children. In a fit of happiness, the emperor gave them all a huge pot of roast meat. Oh, thank goodness, I'm so glad he didn't eat it. They were surrounded by observant people, so as soon as the emperor showed that he liked Prince Jing's sons, these people all started to praise the little Gongza as well. They had practically forgotten that the sixth prince was there too, but the sixth prince just sat there eating his dinner calmly. At night, Leah and Prince Jing stayed in the tent that the emperor had assigned to Prince Jing. Wang Shi and the four children slept in the next tent, only separated from Prince Jing and Leah by a curtain. The outdoors wasn't the place to talk, so Leah tried to avoid any confidential topics when he talked to Prince Jing here. They knew each other very well though, so sometimes they could understand one another with just a gaze. After they finished getting ready for bed, they met each other's eyes. They didn't know who started it, their lips pressed together in a fight for dominance. Prince Jing picked Leah up and laid him down, letting him lean on his chest as he softly caressed his back. They both expected the sixth prince to make a move during the hunting festival, so Prince Jing had made preparations. But now, thanks to those preparations, they couldn't be intimate with each other yet. Leah lay drowsily on Prince Jing and fell asleep for a little while. Then, outside the tent, there was a small snapping sound. Someone yelled, "Assassin," and Leah immediately opened his eyes, turned over, and got up. He and Prince Jing were still wearing their robes under the blankets. They had both been waiting for this moment. And that's the end of the volume. I said I didn't want this to end on a freaking cliffhanger. How dare they? And it's not even like a. I guess there are worse cliffhangers in the sense that there are more ill-omened cliffhangers, because at least this implies that they were expecting it. But still, what a, like, that's such a cliffhanger. It's very, very rude. And it's even ruder considering we have to suffer for at least a month before we actually get to read the final novel. Oy, 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 oy. I am a little bit indecisive at the moment with regards to how to handle future novels, because I don't mind splitting up Beloved Pet Fish and Urha, because it's such a good thing to have something as light as Beloved Pet Fish after something as heavy as Urha. But in moments like this, I kind of wish that I had instead done, you know, bigger chunks of like doing volume 1 and 2 together and volume 3 and 4 together or something like that. Um, but yeah, it's just damn it. Anyway, that was so much fun, and I'm just so glad that the novel has not lost its tone. Um, Considering we were going into the second half of the story, I very much feared that it would get very, very dark in a bit of a heavier way. And it's so nice that it's kept its humor even though the stakes have risen. Because I see this oftentimes with shows specifically where the first few episodes will kind of have this great humor and light vibe, and then you get lured into the second half of the story and it's just tragedy hits like you would not believe, and you suddenly understand that they only gave you that happiness to make up for all the pain and suffering that you're going to be enduring in the second half. And I'm very glad that that was not the case with this novel. So I am excited to see where the rest of it goes. I'm wondering if there are going to be any extras for this novel, or if it's more, mostly gonna be the main story wrapping up in the final volume. I mean, obviously the main story is wrapping up, but in comparison, Scumble and Self-Saving System, the main story basically wrapped up in volume 3, and then volume 4 was just the extra. So I'm just wondering how much of volume 4 is the novel wrapping up versus extras. I just love the baby shenanigans. It is so great. I am very pleasantly surprised by how dynamic the addition of the children have been to this. I was very unsure. I mean, because I can't remember, but I think I went into this first half of the volume still not aware of the Impreg shenanigans. Was it really this volume? It feels like forever ago. But to think how much happened in this one volume, and like the growth that we've seen from the characters, it's so great. Because when we did learn about the Impreg, I legit thought it was gonna only really be like Leah being pregnant for the majority of the rest of the novel, and then the children being born right at the end. So having them be characters in and of their own rights and affecting the story and actually being quite a big part of the story was really surprising. So yeah, generally I really enjoyed it. It's such a fun, nice break away from the more serious stories that we have, and I love the serious stories, but it's just nice to have the balance. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed it as well. Thank you guys so much for joining me for this insane novel. Because it's just so fun. And yeah, we are gonna be back hopefully next week with volume, is it 8? We finished volume 7, right? So volume 8 over here. I'm basically just waiting for it to arrive, so whenever it arrives is whenever we will start with that. And I'm hoping that it arrives in time for next Monday, but otherwise we might just skip that Monday and then go back to it on the next Monday. One thing that I've been a little bit torn about, because it was something I intended to do I think last year and I just did not have enough time for it, is doing a stream for my birthday where I read a chapter or a certain amount of words of novels submitted by you guys, by my subscribers, instead of my normal reading live stream. So I still need to kind of think through that a little bit, but let me know if you guys are interested in me doing something like that, because it doesn't have to be for my birthday. I just thought, that would be a good excuse for doing it, because I think it might be a little bit fun to do something that is just centered around you guys and not necessarily around published works. So anyway, let me know. But otherwise, I will see you guys in the next live stream. 再见。